Welcome to Phoenixville Borough Council's regular meeting for Tuesday, January 14th, 2014. I'd like to call the meeting to order and open up with a pledge of allegiance and moment of silence. Or moment of silence and then pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll ask the borough manager to do a roll call. Mr. Dalton. Here. Ms. Dugan.
Here.
Mr. Richter. Present. Mr. Kusnar. Present. Ms. Mayo. Here. Mr. Kowaleski. Present. Mayor Speck.
75.
Manager, solicitor, and chief are here. You have a quorum. Thank you. Before we get into item 3 on the agenda, I'd just like to request council's indulgence and flip-flop number 4 and number 5 on the agenda. If anybody has any issues with that, seeing none, we'll go ahead and proceed that way. Yes?
One quick question. When would the East Ward appointment?
I would consider that under 5G, which would be 4G now. Consider approval of the December 10th, 2013 council meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve the December 10, 2013 council minutes.
Second.
Thank you. On the question? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed?
Abstain for not being here.
601. Moving on with the agenda, we'll move into appointments and public resolutions. The first order of business is a resolution acknowledging the donation of the borough Christmas tree from the Karasik family. And I hope I said that correctly. If I didn't, I apologize. Thank you. On the question? Gene, do you have that? I'll read the resolution for the public's participation. A resolution by the Council of Borough of Phoenixville, Chester County, Pennsylvania, to acknowledge the donation of the borough Christmas tree on behalf of the Karasik family. Whereas each year the borough provides a time of seasonal enjoyment through an annual tree lighting ceremony and display in Renaissance Park. And whereas during the time of spiritual fulfillment and reflection, we take a moment and cherish Christmas with all the festivities, the joy of caring, and the sharing of spirit that accompanies it. And whereas the borough is blessed with many citizens who dedicate themselves toward their community, their commonwealth, and their nation. And whereas the borough of Phoenixville warmly recognizes the unselfish generosity of the Karasik family, who donated the wonderful evergreen tree that was used for the 2013 Christmas tree display. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the 14th day of January 2014, and the Borough Council of the Borough of Phoenixville wishes to extend the utmost thanks and appreciation for the gracious donation by the Karasik family of the 2013 annual Christmas tree. Any comments on the resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Is there anyone from the Karasik family here to accept the resolution? Seeing none, I'll just ask that the borough manager present this to them. Moving on with B, consider approval of a resolution acknowledging Richard Mark Kirkner for his years of service on Borough Council. Again, for the public here and at home, I'll read this into the record. A resolution by the Council of the Borough of Phoenixville, Chester County, Pennsylvania, acknowledging Richard Mark Kirkner for his 8 years of service on Borough Council. whereas Richard Mark Kirkner has served honorably as councilman of the North Ward since January 2nd, 2006, and whereas Richard Mark Kirkner has served as council president since April 13, 2010, and whereas Richard Mark Kirkner completes his term of office as president and as the North Ward councilman on January 6, 2014, and whereas Richard Mark Kirkner's participation in the affairs of the borough government has provided invaluable service to his ward and this community as a whole, and whereas Borough Council wishes to express its appreciation to Richard Mark Kirkner for his public service. Now there be it resolved that it is hereby resolved by the Borough Council of the Borough of Phoenixville that Richard Mark Kirkner is recognized and publicly acknowledged for his efforts to provide for the efficient and effective government which is responsive to the needs of its citizens. Any comments? I just have one. I came out on council 2 years ago and got to serve under Richard. I really enjoyed that time. I appreciate his efforts to the community and to educating us younger council people at that time and helping us to continue his legacy and helping the community. Any other comments? Seeing none on the question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Richard, would you like to come up and receive this? You don't need this back, do you? No. Okay. Congratulations. Thank you again. Thanks. Moving on to item C, consider approval of resolution acknowledging Michael J. Specht for his years of service on Borough Council.
Second.
On the question, any comments? I guess I'll read this in first. A resolution by the Council of the Borough of Phoenixville, Chester County, Pennsylvania, acknowledging Michael J. Specht for his 6 years of service on Borough Council. Whereas Michael J. Specht has served honorably as councilman of the East Ward since January 7th, 2008, and whereas Michael J. Specht has served as council vice president since January 3rd, 2012, and whereas Michael J. Specht completes his term of office as vice president and as the East Ward councilman on January 6, 2014, and whereas Michael J. Specht's participation in the affairs of the borough government has provided invaluable service to his ward and this community as a whole, and whereas Borough Council wishes to express its appreciation to Michael J. Specht for his public service. Now therefore be it resolved that it is hereby resolved by the Borough Council of the Borough of Phoenixville that Michael J. Specht is recognized and publicly acknowledged for his efforts to provide for the efficient and effective government which is responsive to the needs of its citizens. Any comments? I just have one. Again, I'd like to thank Mike for his service. It was an honor to serve with you for the last 2 years. Seeing no additional comments, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, Michael. Moving on with item D, consider approval of a resolution acknowledging Dave Gotro for his years of service on Borough Council. We'll give that to Mr. Richter. Any comments? Oh, let me again read this into the record first. A resolution by the Council of the Borough of Phoenixville, Chester County, Pennsylvania, acknowledging David Gotro for his 4 years of service on Borough Council, whereas David Gotro has served honorably as councilman of the East Ward since January 4th, 2010, and whereas David Gotro has served as council assistant secretary since April 13, 2010, and whereas David Gotro completes his term of office as assistant secretary and as the East Ward councilman on January 6, 2014, and whereas David Gotro's participation in the affairs of the borough government has provided invaluable services to his ward and this community as a whole, And whereas Borough Council wishes to express its appreciation to David Gotro for his public service, now therefore be it resolved, and is hereby resolved by the Borough Council of the Borough of Phoenixville that David Gotro is recognized and publicly acknowledged for his efforts to provide for the efficient and effective government which is responsive to the needs of its citizens. Any comments? Again, I just want to say thank you, David. It's been an honor to serve with you the last 2 years. You did a great job on council and appreciate your efforts. On the question, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Item E, consider approval of a resolution acknowledging Carl Bucas for his years of service on Borough Council. What is council's pleasure? We'll give that to Mr. Dalton. Again, I'll read the resolution into the record. A resolution by the Council of the Borough of Phoenixville, Chester County, Pennsylvania, acknowledging Carl Bucas for his service on Borough Council, whereas Carl Bucas has served honorably as councilman of the Middle Ward since July 23, 2012, and whereas Carl Bucas completes his term of office as Middle Ward Councilman on January 6, 2014, and whereas Carl Bucas' participation in the affairs of the borough government has provided invaluable service to his ward and this community as a whole, and whereas Borough Council wishes to express its appreciation to Carl Bucas for his public service. Now therefore be it resolved and is hereby resolved by the Borough Council of the Borough of Phoenixville that Carl Bucas is recognized and publicly acknowledged for his efforts to provide for the efficient and effective government which is responsive to the needs of its citizens. Any comments? I'd just like to add, thank you again, Carl. It was a pleasure serving with you for the last year and a half. Your efforts are greatly appreciated. Be careful what you wish for, I guess, is what they say. On the question, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Anybody going to grant the wish? We got one no vote from Jeremy Dalton. Thank you very much, Carl. Moving on with the agenda, we have item F, consider accepting the resignation of Joseph Perez from the Planning Commission. What is council's pleasure?
I'll make that motion to accept.
On the question? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 7-0. Under item G, call for residents interested in being appointed to the various boards and commissions. Ms. Mayo?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Shai President to fill the vacancy on council.
Second.
On the question? The only comment I had is we interviewed, again, for the people at home, we interviewed 3 great candidates before this meeting. Council's decision, I think, is a hard one because all 3 were qualified in their own rights.
Mr. Kowalski, I understand this may not have been a practice in Phoenixville, but in another community, I was involved in a court case where public comment was not allowed on an appointment, and it got challenged and actually ended up in the Commonwealth Court. So I would ask that you, before a vote is taken, allow for some public comment on appointing someone to council. Just ask for that pleasure.
Okay. Then I will, with council's discretion, open up public comment solely for the purpose of the appointment. We'll have public comment regarding any other issues under item 4, which has now become item 5. So if you have any public comment regarding the appointment or the candidates, I invite you to do so now at the podium.
Mr. President, Lou Amici from Ridge Avenue. The only request I have, sir, is would you tell us, I did not hear the person's name, and if you would spell it also, that would be helpful.
No, it's, to Mr. Amici's point, it's Shai Perednik, S-H-A-I-P-E-R-E-D-N-I-K.
Thank you.
Any other public participation with regard to the appointment? Seeing none, we'll close public participation, and then I'll open it up for council comment. Seeing no council comment, I'll take the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Yeah, that's close. Let's do, Mr. Crack, will you please do a roll call?
Mr. Bowers? Nay. Mr. Dalton?
Yeah.
Ms. Dugan?
Aye.
Mr. Richter?
No.
Mr. Kuzma?
No.
Ms. Mayo?
Yes.
Mr. Kowalski?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-3.
I'd like to invite Shai Perednik to come forward and take his oath of office.
Two things, I need him to meet with Ms. Watson back first to do the affidavit of residence.
Okay.
Then invite him up to take the oath of office.
I misspoke. Mr. Perednik, if you will see Ms. Wassel from the borough back in the corner to complete your certificate of affidavit of occupancy saying that you do live in the borough. And then we'll go forward with the swearing in thereafter. In the interim, well, I think that will only take a minute, so why don't we just hold off on moving forward. There's only one open spot. Wait, no, I guess there's two. That's always been the empty chair, so might as well have. Bear with us just for one moment while we complete this. I know there's a lot of people here for, I'm guessing, public participation.
Raise your right hand, place your left hand on the Bible. I state your name.
Shai Perednik,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties
and I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Perednik, if you care to join us, you're invited to join us up here.
Put him right to work.
Not for a while. If you haven't read those constitutions yet, I recommend. 4 years of Navy. Okay, all right. Very good. Very good.
I just want to thank again Mr. Bolton and Mr. Baird, the other two interested candidates, for their interest and for participating in the interview process and showing a desire to serve the residents of Phoenixville, which I think is very noble. Continuing with item G, we have a call for residents interested in being appointed to the various boards and commissions. Mr. Bowers?
There is a concern that the Planning Commission will be unable to meet a quorum to hold its meeting in February. Therefore, I would like to begin to try and restore that quorum by nominating Deb Johnson to the Planning Commission.
That's a motion, I take.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, can I make a comment on this? We have, well, somebody should press second.
Yeah, we've got a motion on the floor, so I'd like to deal with that first.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, the comment I have on this one is normally, in fact, my entire time on council, we have always interviewed for any opening to the Planning Commission, and I think we should stick to what we've done in the past. And my suggestion would be that we have the interviews and appointment on our next meeting, or we have to have a scheduled, we have to schedule a supplementary meeting or something like that. But if we had at the next meeting in February, right after, if we did it like 6 o'clock, we had the Parks and Rec, and at 6:30, we could fit in those Planning Commission meetings so that nothing would have to be canceled, but we could get those interviews in there so everybody has an opportunity for any of the open spots.
Thank you, Ms. Dugan. Any other comments?
Again, I think if we, Deb Johnson certainly has experience on the Planning Commission. She had served in that body for a number of years. There is concern that the Planning Commission would not be able to meet in February without an additional appointment at this time. So I would like council to consider the motion to nominate Deb Johnson to the Planning Commission.
Ms. Mao?
Is there any, first of all, well, two questions. Is there any pressing items in February for Planning Commission? Time-wise?
Well, there's two projects that are working their way through. The Planning Commission does meet on the 13th. Your meeting would be on the 11th. The only downside by waiting would be that that person wouldn't get a package until a couple of days before the Planning Commission. But that's council's pleasure.
Well, I guess the question is, since there won't be a quorum for February, is there anything time-sensitive that needs to be through Planning Commission in January for February, for us to vote, to deal with in February?
Off the top of my head, I wouldn't be able to answer that because I don't know what the time line is for those particular projects, whether or not they have a ticking clock at this point in time. I'd have to get that answer for you. I don't have it available as I sit here.
And then secondly, although, I do agree that Deb does have years of experience. Matter of fact, when I was originally appointed to Planning Commission, I served with her, so I do know that she has experience, but I think that it's only fair to all the applicants that everybody get a shot, and I'm not, tonight I won't be voting for her if, just simply for the fact that all the applicants deserve to be interviewed and go through due process.
Any other comments? Yes.
Yeah, I would just like to add my piece coming off the Planning Commission and having to resign my seat there, that I agree that not having the quorum is possibly detrimental to the borough and any applications that might come by. I think it is in our interest, in the interest of the people of the Phoenixville, that we hold interviews in between sessions so that we can hopefully appoint somebody with time for the next Planning Commission meeting.
Mr. Crack, right now, I believe we'll have 3 vacancies with Mr. Prednick's resignation.
You do, Mr. Kusnar comes off, there was a vacant, and then Mr. Prednick comes off, so you do have 3, as of now, you have 3 openings out of 7.
3 out of 7, and I believe we have at least 3 or 4 applications that have been submitted.
That's correct.
Okay. I tend to agree that it's been council's practice in the past that we do interviews, we can do it and not have an issue with quorum because we can have the interviews before council's meeting on the 11th and hopefully appoint so that the 13th we'd have the sitting planning commission members in place at that time. But Ms. Mayo, you had,
I think that the next planning commission meeting is this Thursday, so we wouldn't have time to do any kind of interim, meeting anyway to do interviews.
The planning commission met last week on the 9th, so their next meeting is to the 13th of February.
Okay.
any other comments at this point? Mr. Bowers?
I would consider withdrawing the motion if we have commitment from council to schedule a special meeting to interview candidates for the planning commission.
A special meeting other than at 6:30 before next council meeting?
If that's a designated meeting, then that would be acceptable.
Okay. Well, I think we have to dispose of this motion before we can get to that motion, but I think we've had comment that indicates that willingness to do that, so.
Then I will withdraw my motion.
Is there another motion regarding the interviews?
I would like to make a motion to hold interviews for candidates for the Planning Commission on Tuesday, February 11th at 6 p.m. 6:30.
A second motion?
Second?
Second.
Okay. And that would mean that the Parks and Recs, just because we moved it or canceled it for this evening, would go from 6 to 6:30? Correct. Okay. Comments on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we'll have Mr. 8-0. Mr. Crack, if you will make the appropriate advertisements.
I will do that.
Thank you. Any other, anything else under G for call for residents interested in the appointment to various boards? All right. With the addition of Mr. Perednik, I'd like to round out the appointment to committees. And Mr. Perednik, no offense, but as the last person in, let's see if I can just find what I'm looking for. Bear with me for 1 second. I'd like to appoint Mr. Perednik to the Police Personnel and Public Service Committee, as well as infrastructure at this time. And then I can, after the meeting, let you know what the times and commitments are. That's all I've got for that. Mr. Richter?
One question. Now we have 3 sitting or council members on HARB. I think we may want to take that into consideration for potentially vacating at least one of those seats.
That's a good point. We have the council representative to HARB. Who's the second?
Myself, Jim.
Mr. Perednik, do you?
Who's assigned by the planning commission, so the planning commission would kind of.
Okay.
He comes off that, he comes off that.
Thank you. The borough manager just clarified that Mr. Perednik's appointment was through the planning commission. Since he had to resign the planning commission upon his appointment, the planning commission will be responsible for filling that 3rd spot. But thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Richter. Anything else on item G?
But that does open up a spot on HARB, correct?
Yes,
So we do need somebody for HARB. So,
from the planning commission.
but I thought John's spot. Wouldn't John be resigning his spot on HARB?
At the moment, I was going to stay on.
There's no need, there's no requirement that he resign.
Oh, okay. I thought you were coming off. I'm sorry.
We'll get all these commissions down here in the next 30 days, hopefully. Any other comments on item G? Seeing none, then I'll move on to new item 5, which is public participation. I'll open up public participation and invite individuals to come up. identify yourself, identify if you're a borough resident. Please sign in, and remember to please keep your comments to no more than 5 minutes.
Mr. Kowalski, did you just want to raise the point to the public? There will be a public hearing later scheduled for Friendship Village at 501 Franklin Avenue. So if someone had a particular comment about that project, it's probably better they hold those comments to that period of time when that information is presented, and then they should comment at that period of time during the public hearing time.
Thank you. So if you have comments on anything else other than the public hearing that we have scheduled for later in the meeting, I invite you up at this time.
Good evening, Mr. President and Council. My name is Lou Amici. I'm a resident of the borough. I live on Ridge Avenue. And before I make my remarks, I want everybody to, people who do not know this, I served 2 terms as council president. I was 12 years on the council. And I want to say to Mr. Kowalski, congratulations. Based on everything I have seen on your public record, I think the council made a wise choice and that you will make an excellent council president.
Thank you, Mr. Amici.
And I want to congratulate His Honor the Mayor on a hard-fought victory. Congratulations. And as I am a mummer, I wish all of you a Happy New Year. Fresh off Broad Street. The people who have just been elected to council or newly appointed, you will find that it is a lot easier to win an election than it is to run a government. I wish you all the luck in the world. I'm sure you'll all do a great job. I wanted to say that also. In the late 90s, we had an issue on the council. Actually, this council is lucky. We had an issue where we didn't pass a budget because some people wanted an increase in police officers. Is this deja vu or what? So I understand there's been some discussion about adding an additional police officer. The only comment I would make, and from experience, I'd like to share this with the council and the public. There has been an increase in population in the borough since the last census, so I'm sure there'll be good arguments for increasing the police force, and we all are for public safety. And I'm sure that His Honor the Mayor has already done this. I'm sure he has, being new to that particular position. I'm sure he is instituting a review of all current policies and procedures in the administration of that office, and that's a good thing. So I would ask the council that before you consider putting on a police officer, you allow the mayor and the police chief to go and look for any economies in that department that they could, because putting on that added cost at this time might be prohibitive. That being said, I am generally in favor of adding the police officer. And I thank all of you for your time. And again, good luck to all of you in the new year.
Thank you, Mr. Amici.
Good evening. My name is Tish Jones, and I am also a past council person from the East Ward. I'm here this evening because I want to just ask about the safety of our community, especially when it's snow time. Last Friday, there was a party that I was invited to off of Bridge Street, and as I came down the street, I slid a few times. And it was due to there was snow and ice on the grounds out in front of a couple of the stores. Now, I stopped in, Miss Big Mouth that I am, I stopped in and I said, could you do anything about the outside snow on the ground because other people might be slipping and falling? And the person said to me, that's the borough's business. And I said, borough's business? I said, I don't think so. I said, if you are running a business, the ground right outside of your building is also your responsibility to make sure that it's cleaned off and that it's more safe. So I didn't think things had changed, but maybe things have changed, and now the borough does everything. So I just wanted to mention this to you. And just so happened, the building that I almost slid on was the building that I myself had worked out of with my business. So, and I remember that it did snow, and I thought that at that time that we were supposed to go outside and clean our pavements. So I just wanted to mention that, and I'm not sure whether things have changed since then. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
And also, Happy New Year, and congratulations. And congratulations to Mr.
Perednik.
Bregan?
Perednik.
Pred?
Perednik.
Okay, congratulations anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Hello, everybody. You know who I am? I live on Gay Street. I just wanted to take a few moments to talk about something that had concerned me regarding the engagement of new counsel, legal representation for the borough. I was kind of nonplussed that you all had decided to sack Unreturner Burke and Freeze, our previous counsel, and hire instead a politically connected firm from outside of Chester County without any sort of public interviews, no RFQ, nothing of that nature. The first concern I had with that had to do simply with location, in that we have a custom within the borough of trying to use local vendors whenever possible. And I think in the case of legal representation, it's not entirely insignificant that you use somebody that has some experience and familiarity with the region in which you're dealing. Now, also, the new firm doesn't have, at least according to their public bio, any experience in Chester County in this regard. And I'm also privy, as a recent councilman, that, you know, to what was going on in executive session before I departed. So, I mean, I know that there's a number of sensitive things that we're in the middle of right now that I'm obviously not going to discuss here, but it just seems like an unwise time to switch counsel. Now, the new firm, I understand, is cheaper, apparently, maybe 4% or something, but I don't find the cheapness argument all that persuasive. Unreturner Burke and Freeze had not had a pay raise. They had not raised their rate since 2009, and that rate was deemed acceptable back in 2009. And that is in contrast to every other employee of the borough who has enjoyed pay raises since 2009. Now, if cost was the primary factor, you would have assumed that an RFQ would have been issued so that other firms could have had a crack at the business. But yeah, maybe there was one issue, I don't know about it, but I hadn't heard about that. I hadn't heard about any interviews. I hadn't heard about anything like that. And we were just talking right now about how we should interview people for the Planning Commission, with which I agree. Thanks for bringing that up, Jen. But you all just hired a $250,000 a year employee without any interviews, which, I mean, that seems like a relatively foolish way to spend public money to me. Now, for all we know, with an RFQ, there's a guy that'll do it $15 an hour cheaper up in Berks County who doesn't have experience in working in Chester County. Now, finally, when I was working on council with a lot of you, I never heard a single peep of complaint about the legal representation that we were receiving from our vendor at that time. Are you confident that the situation will be the same with a new firm in the middle of certain sensitive negotiations? You know, I wouldn't be, at least certainly not with sufficient vetting. I mean, the bottom line is, during my service in council, I was surprised pleasantly that there was not a single hardcore party line vote like this. It was great. I loved serving with all of you that are still up there that I served with, and that was one of the things that I loved about it most. And this seems like sort of a reversion to the way things used to be before that reform. I liked it better when I was there. Now, what I do know is that the new firm is all wrapped up in Montgomery County politics. Anyone who knows anything about local politics knows Montgomery County politics is a viper's nest. That is not the sort of thing that I would be eager to invite into the borough. I prefer local politics to work the way they did when I was there, but this appointment of the new council seems like a step in the opposite direction. Maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe they're going to kill it. Seems like your representation tonight's been all right. Got no complaints there. But if this does turn out to be a change in the way things operate in the borough, I think maybe some of you might have a little bit to answer for. And I hope that's not the case. I really don't, especially because the last few years things are operating so well. The borough's in great shape. Things were very amicable. I can't for the life of me imagine why we would court anything different. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Pukas.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Linda Hudak, and I've been living in Phoenixville for 43 years. My concern is I live on Canalcon Drive. Okay, Cleona Avenue, is that Phoenixville's property? Or is the one road between Nut Road and Anderson Avenue?
That's Schuylkill Township.
That is Schuylkill Township. Nothing to do with Phoenixville. So I would have to go to their board meeting. The reason I bring it up, and if anyone else can support me at Schuylkill, there's more people walking that street. Walking dogs, mothers walking children, and there's no lights on that road. Not one street light. And it's frightening to me that someone is going to get hurt and hurt bad. And there's a number of, I mean, I know I can't do anything here, but there's a number of parties held at certain houses where I have had 10 cars parked on that road where traffic is a problem. And that's all what I wanted to know, was how much of that was Phoenixville and how much of that was Schuylkill. Okay.
It's Schuylkill. I can appreciate the issues, but I recommend you go to Schuylkill Township and talk to
Okay.
the
I
supervisor.
wasn't sure. I just wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hudak.
How you doing? My name is Darren Batico, and I represent Valor Men's Grooming. And we just wanted to bring up that we oppose any plan to do away with parking on Main Street. Without any parking, we don't have customers, and we have elderly customers that come into our shop that I have to help out of their car. You know, if there's nowhere for them to park, where are they supposed to go? You know, without any parking on Main Street, it affects all the businesses in town too. There's already an existing parking problem in town, and to take away even one spot would just increase that problem. So I just want to make myself heard.
My name is Alexis Grippy, and I am here representing Mara from Salon Fiber. And we also oppose any parking being taken away from Main Street because that's where our customers park. So I just want to say that.
Thank you both for your comments.
My name is Julie Winkler, and I live on Bridge Street. I'm here as a representative of the Phoenixville Area Business Association, and so I represent our members as well as myself being a business owner on Bridge Street and a homeowner. Our members are very concerned about the taking away of any parking spaces in town without supplementing or replacing those parking spaces. And we are aware that there were 2 plans for the new space and beautifying Main Street, and we absolutely support anything to make Bridge and Main more attractive. I mean, it's really our 3 blocks, the 100, 200, 300, and Main Street are really one shopping area. And so we absolutely support anything to be done to bring more people downtown and to be able to walk downtown. But parking is a problem we hear about daily from our customers, daily. I deal with people who stop in, who ask me where they can park, why they got a ticket, why there's a sign saying tow-away zone, where, you know, untimed parking can be if they have an errand that's going to take more than 2 hours. And so we are all concerned with parking. After asking a number of business owners in just the last few days what their top 3 issues were, parking came up every single time. And so PABA doesn't want to have the council not support beautifying Main Street and making our shopping area more attractive, but taking away spaces in a town that I can't imagine that any of you have ever been, you know, trying to go to a restaurant on a Friday night or, during the weekend and not run into a parking problem. I can't fathom. Actually, I own a bookstore on Bridge Street, and I don't actually think I've met any of you in my bookstore. So I would appreciate, I would appreciate everyone using our local merchants more often. So please reconsider taking away those 12 spaces, because it may not seem like a big number to you, but, those are our customers, those are our daily bread and butter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Winkler.
Hello, Council. My name is Tim Wilfong. I'm from the law office of Tim Wilfong on Main Street. I know some of you already. I also oppose taking away parking on Main Street. The primary reason is because over the years, I first started leasing my office on Main Street in 2009, and that was a pretty rough year for businesses. I've seen probably over 16 different businesses failed on Main Street between 2009 and current. The businesses that are there right now are the ones that survived and basically can survive on that particular street. The business ecosystem, or the economic ecosystem, I feel, of Main Street is actually very fragile. And it might be so possibly in the downtown area, Bridge Street as well. One of the reasons that businesses were able to survive was simply because of the parking changes that had actually taken place, because if you remember, there were no limits on time parking. People could park there for as long as they wanted to before 2009, and the council, through great efforts, instituted the 2-hour parking, which actually was wonderful and brought in a lot of business to Main Street. I think that's one of the reasons that the businesses today are surviving. I made a list of businesses that have failed since 2009, and I can provide that to council upon request. But I think one of the reasons that Main Street is succeeding is because of the efforts of the council to fix the parking problem that was there before, and things are going great as far as parking. So I think to get rid of those spots is going to be very detrimental to the businesses. And I think also that, I can see the philosophy behind wanting to have extended parking. It probably, in my mind, benefits First Fridays, because I know they close off Main Street and have First Fridays there. All the vendors come and set up their tables and everything is very nice. I can see the mentality of having a nice wide sidewalk, although the tables will have to have one short leg and one long leg, because, Main Street's on such an angle, that could, be a problem. But that's another point of mine, is that the street's not really, engineered to really, have tables out there and everything, because it's on such an angle that it just may not make a lot of sense, to extend the sidewalk and get rid of the parking. And Dave Shavaga is going to submit a petition with over 300 signatures on it from local business people. And the one thing I wanted to ask about is the procedure, because we would like to submit that petition into the record of this council meeting, if that's possible, so the council can peruse who signed the petition. And the signatures are mostly a lot of businesses in town, and a lot of prominent business leaders are opposed to getting rid of the parking. So I don't want to take up any more time. So that's the statement that I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilfong.
Hi, I'm Rich Kirkner, 405 Ann Street, and I just want to thank council for the resolution earlier this evening. I want to say a very few words about it, because nobody really wants to hear it. Nobody in the audience anyway, but it was a pleasure serving with you, Jim, and Mike, and Dana, and Chris and Jen and Mike. Mike and Shai and John, I wish you a lot of luck. You're my rep now, so you'll be hearing from me. I also want to say what a pleasure it was to serve with Dave and Carl. Carl, I voted for you.
I know.
So.
One of those non-partisan votes.
And it was a good. I took a lot of heat for that, but I think it was a good vote. I also want to just quickly mention I too was disappointed when the firm of Unruh Turner Burke & Fries was not reappointed as solicitor. I consider Dave Fries, the principal there, a friend of mine. Certainly the Fries family has a lot at stake in this community. And I really think that Andy Rao and Kim Venzi and Tony Verway provided us excellent representation over the years. I don't know the machinations involved in hiring a new solicitor, but I'm not privy to that. I'm no longer on council. I've been involved in that before. I know how that process works, and I trust that council did its due diligence. Finally, I would like to add something you may hear a little bit more about tonight, but it's on Saturday night, December 14th, the Firebird Festival was up at Friendship Field. I, of course, live right next to Friendship Field. And I can tell you, it was a small crowd, probably 2,000 people or so. I think something like 16,000 were expected. Thank goodness we didn't have 16,000 people, because many of our properties were trampled upon. There was very poor crowd control there, even with such a small crowd. Personally, my wife was in the front door just watching the crowd go by. Mr. Gautreaux stopped by, while she's there, a gentleman starts walking up our driveway. We had a portable toilet in our driveway because we just had construction in our house. We had a portable toilet in the driveway, and with my wife in the door, this gentleman, Kevin was his name, if anyone's interested, just starts walking up to the portable toilet. And my wife says, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm going to use the portable toilet." And she said, "No, this is private property. You don't belong here." But that's, and then a discussion ensued. He did not use the toilet. But I think that's kind of indicative of the lack of crowd control that there was. Several properties were just trampled upon that night. And if you have 16,000 people up there and decent weather, it's going to be chaos, especially when you consider that 3 sides of Friendship Field are surrounded by residential properties. So just bear that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkner.
Good evening. My name's Kevin. No, it's not. I'm Dave Chihuaga with Legacy Property Group. Yeah. I'm Dave Chihuaga with Legacy Property Group. We also own Valor Men's Grooming. We've invested in the town. We started about 10 years ago. I am not a resident, but we own several properties in town. That would include some of the ones that you would recognize, like Diving Cat Studio and remember Scarlet Begonias, the bead shop, the bike shop, the new running shoe company. And so over the last 10 years, I'm also a commercial real estate agent. Over the last 10 years, I've talked to hundreds of prospective business owners that we were trying to bring into town. And I counted up that I think I'm responsible personally probably for bringing about 20 plus businesses to the street. Every single one of those businesses talks to me about parking. Number 1 issue is parking. Number 2 seems to be foot traffic for retail. We haven't brought many restaurants to town. But I wanted to get to the facts that we know, and not the anecdotal evidence or conjecture that I believe has gone into this parking decision. The fact is that in 2004, our own parking study here in Phoenixville said that we didn't have enough spaces. It also said that on-street parking creates a more pedestrian-friendly sidewalk. And we know that's true because you have a 3,000-pound safety barrier that the cars provide. It also slows down traffic, and study after study will tell you that. People are afraid maybe a door will open, that a car will pull out, or they're looking for a space. They don't have the line of sight that they'll have if we take away that parking on Main Street. And frankly, we can't afford for cars in this weather, like tonight, to go over that Church Street intersection any faster, trying to make the light down at Bridge Street. So I think this is really an idea that does not have majority support. I'm convinced of that. I had very few people that I interviewed as I walked around from business to business. You heard from PABA. We had overwhelming support at their meeting the other night. I have 325 signatures on this petition, and the reason that people signed this is because they agree that, for one, Main Street's been successful because we have excellent parking management there. We have a 2-hour turnover of parking spaces, so there are always spaces. I drove down, and I took close note again tonight, and I've been doing this for months, and I was able to park right in front of Valor, and I looked across the street at Fiber, and there was a space open there. Not 10 spaces, but 1 space on each side. Now, those of us that really know Main Street and look out our windows every day know that that's the case. These are the most immediate and most high-value spaces that those businesses could ever hope for. So for us, think about our business. You're between sales calls. We're bringing good people to town, and so is Fiber, people that can afford to pay for luxury services, really. But our clients come between business calls. They'll pull in, they'll say, Darren, can you squeeze me in? Well, they're not going to park in the Prospect Street lot, walk down behind the Black Lab, fight with that meter, and come find out that Darren can't squeeze them in. So we'll lose virtually 100% of our walk-in business because nobody's going to park a block away and zip in. Likewise, I think other businesses will suffer the same decline. And the parking study said that if we didn't add parking, that our business would starve for lack of customers. It's almost a quote in there. I mean, I think I have that almost right. Not only that, we have residences above these buildings, and we have no access to the back. So how are they going to, lug their milk, their groceries? They're going to have to park down the block. They don't park in those spaces for very long, but they use them for grocery delivery. We use them to take deliveries for our businesses. We also use them, the residents use them to move their furniture in and out. So I don't know, with the lack of good alternatives nearby, and I want you to really think hard about this. Church Street is completely parked in by residences, but resident parking, right? It's a very competitive street. In fact, the Church Street residents complained when Bridge Street pushed in out on them. I think some of you might remember that. And so that's a very competitive environment. There's no parking really on Prospect. Both lots are filled today. The Mainstay lot is filled, and the Prospect lot is filled. I drove by them. 0 spaces in either one that I could see. If you go up further on Main, you run into the bank parking. So now you have 10-minute and 30-minute parking. You've got bus stops. You've got the firehouse. And then you get down toward the clinic, which maybe like we could, with signage, maybe convince our customers if we could retrain them to park in these hidden places, perhaps. But that's usually parked down by the clinic. I mean, so there aren't really good alternatives for us. So unfortunately, if this plan goes through, we'll be forced to move our business because we're not going to wait and die a slow death. Darren didn't tell you, but he interviewed virtually all of his customers. We didn't rush to this decision. We tried to keep an open mind because we saw the beauty in the plan. We see some aesthetic value in it, although I don't think it's absolutely significant. But Darren's customers, Darren, 100%? 100% of the customers think that we are crazy for eliminating these spaces. So we can't survive there. I don't think Fiber can survive either. And we put, at times, 100 people on that street who then visit the Wooden Spoon and Best Friends and other businesses. When the Black Lab closed, we owned both sides of the Black Lab. We owned Diving Cats and we owned Scarlet Begonias at the time. And both those businesses pleaded with the Clausens to reopen for lunch because their businesses went to 0. Nobody walked down there. Now we're putting people on the street, and that's the #2 concern for businesses when I talk to them is foot traffic. So I won't take a whole lot more time, but
Mr. Chihuahua, if you could wrap it up because you're over 5 minutes already.
Okay, this is important stuff. I mean, I'd rather have.
I
understand the protocol, but you're driving businesses out of town, and I honestly, in 10 years, this is not a minority view that I'm representing. I'd like to ask, for this for motion to have this entered into the record. You'll see top business leaders on this. We've got more signatures on the way, and there's not even a question as to what the majority view is on this issue, in my mind. So I can wrap it up, or I could go on for another 30 minutes on this. I have a lot more facts, but you all received them, so you can read them for yourselves.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Marie Ashton. I am a resident, and I live at 432 Ann Street, which is the property next to the Friendship, former Friendship Field, Friendship Park, whatever we're calling it these days, and was, of course, party to the great Firebird Festival. It is memorable to me because although I think it was a wonderful, wonderful thing, and got to see the large part of it, not only from 3 o'clock on until the next morning, but the amount of people who trampled through and made all kinds of, left all their trash and whatever else there was. So I didn't have to say that I did have to support Mr. Kirkner in everything that he said. I'm not going to be long in this, except that with the large floodlights, which were on all night, and right into my living room, since I live so very close, it was very difficult. And I know you all supported it, but I have to tell you, there are some parts of it which are very difficult, especially when you live alone. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm back again. In regards to the parking, I don't know how many people read the Mainline magazine, the Chester County magazine, but our doctor's office is down toward, Mainline. And in their magazine, come and visit Phoenixville Historical Town. We have this to offer, we have this to offer, we have this to offer. They open up with the first Friday, and give you a rundown of what's happening in Phoenixville to draw the people in. So I kind of agree. If you take the parking and you give no parking, those magazines, they're not going to advertise if people can't come in to town. And I've spoken to people in the doctor's office, letting them know that I am from Phoenixville, and it's a wonderful town. There's so much to offer. And now you want to close parking? I think I would think about it. Seriously. Hopefully you don't do it. If you can't give them parking before you take it away. And I agree, you're going to lose businesses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Brandon Whitaker. I'm here to, I guess, in the minority opinion right now, but to support the plan that was discussed at the last meeting and voted for the plaza-style plan. Dave's a tough act to follow here with his petition and everything, but this plan was presented not really about a loss of parking. It was more about trying to create a destination away from Bridge Street to draw people up from Bridge Street to another part of the town. The idea was to give more depth to the downtown business district. Right now, Bridge Street is considered the main street, and Main Street is considered a side street. It does impact parking. Phoenixville does have a parking problem. We heard tonight from some of the tenants there that businesses have disappeared since 2009. Well, guess what? There's parking on the street. So I don't know how taking away the parking necessarily means it drives businesses out of town. You have parking now there for them. There's new development that's happening north of Bridge Street, the new apartment buildings. You're going to have 600 units there. That's probably 1,000 plus residents that are going to be coming to town. Those people are going to want to go somewhere. To me, it makes sense to have a destination spot. It will help draw them up from Bridge Street. It will help the businesses along that street. I know that if I go to a shopping center, get my hair cut when I had hair, or to the King of Prussia Mall to shop at Christmas time, if I want to be there, I'm walking a quarter mile to get into the destination I want to be. If the businesses have good services, have good products, people will come to you. But I think this plan is more about laying the foundation to get businesses here that can provide products and services. I have 3 buildings on Main Street at this intersection. I'm impacted. I have a commercial property that is vacant right now. I'd very much like to lease. I've been interviewing prospective tenants. They are all in support of having some plaza-like plan. They believe that it will draw people up the block. It will make them come to their business. I don't know what the protocol is here, but I ask that if this is opened back up, if there's a vote, that at least it is opened back up to be placed on an agenda and advertised, and not opened up and voted tonight, so that we may have others represent other sides of the coin. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker.
Hi, I'm Teresa Brewer. I'm a lifer of Phoenixville, a new business owner, and lived here my whole life, and parking is horrible, so I'm here to oppose it. And I hear a lot of people that have come to my shop and tell me that there is a problem, and it is hard for them to come visit the shop because of the parking, so I oppose.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jim O'Brien. I'm part of the William James Group. My partner, Bill Felton, couldn't be here tonight, so I'm here representing our organization. I own 5 properties on Main Street, 6, 22, 24, 26, and 28. They're all in the scope of this redevelopment. I'm in favor of it and supported and wrote a petition that was submitted prior to the vote on this, which was approved by this council or the previous council, and thank you for that. My partner has some varying views on the design, but I think that's, in general, we're both in favor of the redevelopment of Main Street, and we see the plaza as the add to the destination of Phoenixville. Phoenixville has a parking issue. Congratulations. My first investment in this town came 20 years ago, in 1993, 21 years ago now, on 6 Main Street, and I held my office there. I didn't see anybody on the street at that point in time except for people stopping by, using the phone on the outside of my building to contact people on the north side to go pick up drugs. That doesn't exist anymore. Bridge Street has been a great success for us. It's been the anchor of the town, and it's been in part by the renovation of what's happened on the street. And that includes sidewalks. It includes the aesthetics of the lights. And we're asking for the same thing on Main Street, to extend the destination for people to gather and build out the center of this town. It makes sense from a development standpoint. I don't want to lose any tenants, and I don't want to lose parking. But 12 parking spaces is not the issue here. There is need for a lot of parking. As part of our petition, we talked about notification of signage. We talked about simplicity and metering, which I believe is happening. And we talked about additional capacity. And we're in support of all of those things, and we think they need to be done. And I would ask the Borough Council, as a question this evening, maybe you could inform the public about what the long-range plans are around parking for this town, so that we can progress with something that is monumental for our town, which has been extended with I think north of a $400,000 grant, which is a one-time opportunity for us to develop this. Agreed that we don't want to lose 12 spots or any spots, but if we can solve the overall parking, the distance between where people will park with knowledge, awareness, will not have an issue on Main Street. So thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan.
Being the only former councilperson who hasn't gotten up yet, I feel like I have to. I also want to thank you for the resolution this evening and wish you all the best of luck. Later on the agenda tonight, and you know, when I was on council, this is always my issue. You're going to see you'll be asking to vote on the water increase. Let me remind you that half the water that leaves the water plant is never billed out because it disappears either through slow meters or it goes somewhere underground. And also, last count, we have over $500,000 in unpaid water bills, and I don't think it's fair to pass those increases on to the rate payers when we have issues with our infrastructure and collecting past due amounts. So I ask you to please vote no on that this evening. And not to beat a dead horse, but I echo what Mr. Kirkner, Mr. Bucas said. I think putting party before taxpayers was a wrong move last week, considering I believe 3 of the members had no idea who they were even voting for. So moving forward, always vote your heart and do what's best for the taxpayers, not your party. Thank you.
Dave Meadows, 615 Main Street. My wife also has a toy store at 113 Main, and I'm also president of Phoenix Hose Hook and Ladder, part of the Phoenixville Fire Department. Jen, and you have, Jen Mayo, you have a right to kick me after this, but my wife and I supported this plan with no parking on Main Street, but we've had a change of heart in the last month, and I want to just go on record with that. A lot of what happens downtown is shared parking. You know, the senior center, some banks in the area, the old Borough Hall lot, some churches. They've been shared and they've served as community parking unofficially. Slowly over time, that is disappearing. We've lost several properties to bank acquisitions, 3 of them in the last 2 years that were shared parking. That's forced the fire company, which now also houses an ambulance squad. We have 22 places, and we've historically rented 20 of those out as a fundraiser and as a community service. We're in the process of eliminating spaces 7 through 13 because we're in a crunch. We have no place to park because we've lost all our community parking. Jen, I think you mentioned last month about bringing up at a future committee meeting about the permit parking downstairs is now pushing out further into other neighborhoods because people who are in permitted areas now are forced to go to other locations, unpermitted areas, and it's a trickle-down effect. And I think that's what's happening here. And you know, the Sovereign Bank property was just purchased, and within a week, fences went up, taking it off the viable alternate parking spot. The firehouse's main income for operating revenue is bingo. We've lost over 50% of our revenue in the last 2 years. I'm sure some of it has to do with the state of Pennsylvania's need to balance their budget with gambling everywhere you turn, but it's also been a lack of parking in our area. So, I mean, we'll probably be back here as a fire company sometime this budget year asking for some more help because, you know, I mean, right now I'm looking to see if I can rent the bingo hall, if there's a way to improve it or, you know, improve bingo. Or rent it out as a warehouse, I don't know, but we need to improve where we are now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meadows.
Good evening, council members, council president, your honor the mayor, other distinguished guests. I'm here tonight to encourage the new borough council to add a 29th officer to our police department. This task was started by a study that the borough instituted some time ago. That study pointed out that a population of 16,000, the borough at that time stated there should be 32 police officers. The Borough Council of 2007 started us on a path to 29 officers. Subsequent councils seem to have had a negative bias against the police department. They tried to lay off 2 officers. They later tried to reduce the number of officers from 28 to 27. Both of these efforts failed. This was due to the efforts of the citizens of the borough and many others. Since the study of the police department when the population was 16,000, the population has grown. I have been given information that we may have a population of between 2,000 and 4,000 illegals in our borough. There will be built in the borough approximately 1,000 new dwelling units within the next 18 months. This could add another 2,000 additional residents. In light of this, we should take the following steps to meet this future challenge. 1, fill the vacancies in the Civil Service Board. 2, establish a civil service list of candidates for the police department. 3, hire a 29th officer as soon as practical. My understanding is, if the quote is right, our manager says that we can do it without a tax raise. I don't know if that, can you confirm that? Did you say that?
This is just for public participation. There's no questions at this point. And if I can ask you actually to introduce yourself for the record. And for
William C. McGinley, 354 NUTT Road, Phoenixville. Resident for 28 years. Okay, acquire and train a police drug dog, drug certified. Place video cameras in high crime areas. I think this is what we need to keep our town a good place to live. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Charles Wilfong. I operate Wilfong Tax Preparation Services at 21 South Main Street. I'm a resident of East Pikeland Township. I started the business around 2009, and that was right about the same time they instituted the parking for the 2-hour. When I was first looking for a place to establish a business, I was kind of worried because the cars weren't moving out front of me. But as soon as they moved the 2-hour situation in, it started opening up and more business started coming. Now, I think if you take away the 12 spots, it's not 12 spots. It's 12 spots, 24 as it turns over, 48, 100, da-da-da-da-da. Right now, it benefits everyone because the street's full right now. And those people are down on Main Street. So Main Street, you think people are going to walk from where the clinic is down the main, down Main Street, down the bridge? It's too far. You just can't have that. Most of my clients come to me. I have very few. I opened up this office here thinking that the signage would draw the business and the people would come locally. You know what? We don't get very many local people. And as I talk to the other business owners, they say, the people don't walk here. Even people from Star Street wind up driving because it's just a little bit too far. If I come this way, if I'm coming late, because I had another office prior to this, if I was coming late and I was going to go to my office at 5 o'clock, there's no spots. I have to drive away. You can't get down by the clinic. There's nowhere to park. I just go home. But, what's going to happen if you take away those spots? More and more people they're just going to drive through. They're just going to drive right down Main Street, go on Bridge Street, drive to Providence to eat lunch, dinner, stuff like that. So for that, I'm opposed to it. So please don't take it away. Please don't hurt us. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Wolfong. Seeing no additional comments for public participation, we'll close that portion of the meeting. Move on to communications and council participation. Mr. Richter.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is with great dismay that I must address several phone calls I've received over the last week. A meeting last Monday, which began with so much promise and a fresh feeling of a new beginning for the leadership of this great borough, ended with a hurried, non-transparent, and uninformed decision to replace our solicitor of many years. As I have received calls, I have had to reassure the residents who I serve that I will conduct their business with as much transparency as possible at all times. I've reminded them that I can and will work with Democrats, Republicans, independents, you name it, as long as the business is conducted in a manner which respects the people of Phoenixville and allows for constructive dialogue between all parties. The vote to change our solicitor met none of those easily obtained goals. There was no transparency, no discussion, and no respect for the people of Phoenixville in that decision. Luckily for us, there's an easy way to fix this, the current predicament we've found ourselves in. We can be transparent, we can make an informed decision, and we can respect the people of Phoenixville. It's not too late. A little more than a month ago, I sat on the other side of this room and watched as Mr. Speck thoughtfully encouraged us to put out an RFP for work to be done at the Civic Center rather than rushing to take the first and only bid. The dollar amount may have been small, but as he suggested, it would give Borough Council the ability to protect every dollar of the taxpayer and make a more informed decision. If Mr. Kilkenny's firm is the best law firm to represent our borough, then this should shine in an open and transparent RFP process. We do this for our engineering, our other service organizations, and small and large projects alike. What is the difference now with this firm? I have heard about the political contributions Mr. Kilkenny's firm has made, and quite frankly, he and his firm have every right to do so. This should not preclude him from being part of the bidding process, but it certainly does not mean that not only his foot, but his whole body immediately get through the door without due process. So it's on this regular meeting of council, this first regular meeting of council, in front of these cameras, the reporters, audience, and most importantly, the people of Phoenixville, that I ask you to stand for transparency, a due process, and all of the people of this borough. Do we want to send the message we are for backroom dealing and covert placement of officials in Phoenixville? Or do we want to conduct ourselves with dignity and respect for those that have come before us and those that will come after us? I know which option I'm choosing. We have a chance to show that our council wants the best for the people we serve. So now I would like to make a motion to reappoint Unruh, Turner, Burke, and Freeze and conduct staff to begin an open RFP process to help select a solicitor. Thank you, Mr. President.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion and a second, so I need discussion.
President. I was elected in the 2011 general election cycle. Shortly after that election cycle, then the council majority chose to issue an RFP for a borough solicitor as well as other borough professional services. That RFP was shared with the incoming council. That RFP was voted on in the first full session of a reorganized borough council on January 10th, 2012. There was discussion from both sides of the aisle. There were questions from both sides of the aisle. And the motion was made, and the motion passed 6-1. Transparency is a wonderful thing. It can produce the best outcome. I think it is a paradox when we say we want to find the best price for work on the Civic Center, for something that, for work that desperately needs to be done. I think it is that paradox where we must go out and get a 3 quote for a $10,000 spend, but yet we're asked to accept that no bid is required for a $250,000 professional services agreement. It is owed to the residents of the borough to conduct a formal RFP process. I think we've heard a lot of support from the public. Tonight has just been wonderful to see all the participation from the public on all issues. We have a lot of business ahead of us, a lot of issues to reconsider, to hold very thoughtful and thorough discussion on. Our decisions are impactful impactful to the businesses, to the residents of our borough. And we owe them the full due diligence and process that we, of council. Thank you.
Any other comment? The only comment that I'll add is that I've met with Sean. I feel great respect and I appreciate his experience. I think he's going to do a great job as a solicitor. In making the decision to change, there was many factors I considered, most of which, or not least of which, was the cost per hour, which there was a significant reduction. Mr. Bucas, I think you mentioned at 4%, but 4% over $250,000 tends to add up very quickly. So I voted my conscience before. I intend to vote my conscience again. Mr. Richter?
With all due respect, Mr. President, were 7 of us, now 8 of us. I, for one, was not included in any of that discussion.
Any other comment? On the question, roll call vote, I believe.
Mr. Bowers?
Yes.
Mr. Dalton?
No.
Ms. Dugan?
No.
Mr. Richter?
Yes.
Mr. Kusner?
Yes.
Ms. Mayo? No. Mr. Perednik?
Yes.
Mr. Kowaleski?
No.
Mr. President, you have a tie. The mayor can break that tie. He can defer that for up to 5 days for a special meeting. If he doesn't do anything in 5 days, it comes back and you vote on it at a special meeting.
We'd have to vote on it at a special meeting.
Right, so it's
Mr. Mayor?
No.
Thank you.
motion's defeated then.
Yes. Any other communication or council participation? Mr. Bauer?
Yes, thank you, Council President. I know we won't settle it tonight, but I think we do certainly need to discuss how Main Street streetscapes can and should unfold. I know that a vote was taken, but it seems that it would be prudent to open up some type of review and a reevaluation of the plan that was voted on in the interest of the businesses that have expressed concern, in the interest of residents that have expressed concern about the adopted plan for streetscapes. I don't know exactly how that unfolds, and we'll certainly ask council to consider how to guide us through that, whether it's through committee, whether it's through a special meeting to review the streetscapes, the Main Street Streetscapes project, or exactly how that should unfold. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowers. Just for some clarification on that, I'd ask the borough manager. I believe there was some discussion as far as timing and need to get the grant in and things like that. So I don't know where we stand. If we could open it up again tonight, or what's the background as to timing and commitments for the grant?
For the grant expires June 30th. Is it probable that we could get an extension? We have a good success rate of those kinds of things, so I would expect that we could get that extension. What we're running up against, recognizing that we've been at this through committee, we've been at it through the Phoenixville First group as well. We've had meetings with the business owners several times over the course of since June timeframe. The area that is, if it's problematic, it is that we're in the middle of design and engineering. Council voted to move this forward. My job is not to second guess council, so I had to, of course, engage the design and engineering to keep moving forward with the full intent of getting bid documents prepared, getting this out to bid, and being ready and timely to start the project in early spring and be done by the end of the year and reduce the amount of time we need from the county as far as extension goes. So those are pretty much the parameters.
Thank you, Mr. Crack. Any other council participation or correspondence? I had one, which I'm going to hand to Mr. Crack. It's a letter from the Chester County Planning Commission regarding a preliminary subdivision on 136 Columbia Avenue, and asked that he share this with the rest of council. Moving. What Mr. Crack is mentioning is that, I guess, or not, I guess, with regard to the Main Street Streetscapes project, right now we've got, council has approved it last December. If there wants to be any action, I think a motion needs to come. I would recommend maybe under new business with regard to that streetscapes project. Otherwise, staff will continue under the auspices of the vote that happened in December that approved the plan. Mr. Richter?
At minimum, I would suggest perhaps collecting the document with the signatures, since our residents spend a lot of time with that, no matter which direction. I think it's important that we recognize that. Thank you.
I agree. I think I saw, and I'm not sure if all council saw that email that Mr. Chihuahua, I think it came from him, attached to the petition. If he's still in the audience, I don't see him out there. You can hand in the petition to Gene, and I'll make sure it gets circulated, or he'll make sure it gets circulated to the council members. Thank you. Moving on then to new business. Mr.
Sorry,
Bowers.
Council President, if I may, one last issue from the neighborhood. 461 Dayton Street is a demolition. I would ask that we just take a look at how the property has been secured during the demolition. There is an open pit right now on that property that is not fenced off. Poses somewhat of a risk to the neighbors. Thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing that attention. Gene, Mr. Crack, will you please look into that or have the codes department look into it? Thank you very much. New business. Seeing none, we'll continue on to resolutions. Is that one? Any resolutions? We have consider approval of a resolution to revise the master schedule fees for various changes, including a change to the water fee from $6.95 to $7.30 per 1,000 gallons of water used. What is council's pleasure on that?
I'll make a motion.
To approve? Yes. Seeing no second, that motion will die. Okay. Mr. Crack mentioned a point that I want to bring up. The increase was approved as part of the budget last year, which means that the budget will now have to be changed and dealt with in Finance Committee. So I ask that he put that on Finance Committee's agenda for the next meeting. Moving on to I'm sorry, Mr. Bowers.
Council President, I believe we still then need to adopt the master schedule, and there are other items within the master schedule that we need to bring forward. So would like to make a motion to adopt the master schedule of fees with exception to the the water fee from $6.95 to $7.30 per 1,000 gallon used.
Thank you. We have a motion on the
I'll
floor.
second.
A second by Mr. Richter. Discussion on that motion. Ms. Mayo.
Can I just ask for some clarification? I'm sorry.
So motion to approve the master schedule with exception to the water rate.
Any other discussion on that motion? Seeing none on the question, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Can I see a show of hands just because it was hard for me? I've got to, okay. 8-0. Thank you for that indulgence. Anything else under resolutions? I don't want to miss the second one again. Moving on to item 10, public hearings. We have several on the list. I believe we've had one withdraw, though. B has been withdrawn, which is the conditional use hearing that was scheduled for tonight for the project known as Fillmore West on Fillmore Street. No, we'll need you for item C, not for item A. Okay, thank you. Be late to the party. I appreciate that. With regard to item A, public hearing for proposed ordinance amendment to Chapter 15, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Part 4, General Parking Regulations, and Part 8, Off-Street Metered Parking. Excuse me. I will open that public hearing at 8:41. Excuse me. Public comment, yeah. I'll invite public comment, anyone that has public comment on this issue to come to the podium and provide a statement. I'll close the public participation portion of the public hearing and close the public hearing as well and ask council's pleasure at this time. Yes.
There are several sections in the changes. One of them is a change of a distance of signs on Canalcan to make it easier for parking away from the corner area and not particular street. Then there is a handicap parking sign on 2nd Avenue that is being authorized. And then the third part of this is an expansion of the streets that are zoned parking, residential parking in the downtown to include additional areas on Jackson Street, Lincoln Avenue, Morgan Street, Quick Street, and Walnut Street. And then the fourth piece is some change in language on the municipal lots for the Borough Hall lot here, as well as the Civic Center parking lot over off of Main Street. Those are the changes that were being recommended.
Yes, I'll open public participation again.
Okay, I'm Julie Wickler. I live on Bridge Street. So this is going to take away more public parking for people coming into the downtown area.
The residential,
especially the third portion, by making it residential parking only?
the residential parking, it's not residential parking only. It is permitted parking for residents during the daytime. If you recall, it's the same 2-hour parking that is in the downtown through the same time frame. It's just at nighttime, it's limited to those with the parking permits. And during the day, if you have a parking permit, you're entitled to park there.
And the fourth portion, I'm sorry, the fourth part about the Civic Center parking?
The Civic Center there's about 6 or 7 spots that are taken up by some of the businesses, and we actually conduct business there at the Civic Center for people that are driving there, and there's no place to park. So this, during the work...
You mean there's nowhere to park near the Civic Center? So you need those spaces because it would be hard for someone doing business at the Civic Center to find parking around that area? You mean like by Main Street where Main and Church intersect, that area? Is that what we're talking about? Because amazingly, that is the exact same place that you are going to be removing 12 spaces from if the grant proposal goes through to beautify Main Street. So I would just like to, point out the little irony there that you're now going to be considering. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Any other public participation on this before it's closed? Ms. Hudak, if you would like to speak, please. Dr. Stanek.
I don't know when I can speak. This is on item B, and the word used was withdrawn. I think the word should be time extension.
It was withdrawn from tonight's agenda.
It was withdrawn from tonight's agenda was my...
All right. I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Ms. Hudak?
Was there mentions on anything on Canalcan Drive as far as parking? And I didn't know if I...
There's the part of the proposed resolution would install a no parking sign on Canalcan, on the portion of Canalcan pulling in from Cleona.
Right, because I live on Canal. I have one car to our family, and we are having major parking problems on that whole road where Pulio owns those apartment complexes. I mean, we have one family that owns 3 vans and 3 cars. So, like you say, when you come off of Cleveland Avenue, you're hit with van. And it's really hard because we now have, I would say, 15 more children that have moved into the neighborhood. And even though they've put the hump in, people are not respecting it, really. I mean, there's too many little children, 4 and 5, running in and out of the street. And I am worried for those children because a lot of them do not speak English. They speak it, the tongue of their parents. Okay, so that's just a concern. But I would like to see something because it's very hard coming around and getting out because of the way the parking is there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment on this issue? Seeing none, we'll close public participation again. And we're going to have council participation.
Okay.
I'll open it up. Ms. Mayo, if you would like to.
Oh, okay, good.
Oh, well, first we need a motion on the floor for council participation.
I'll make that motion.
I second the motion.
I'll give it to Ms. Dugan, who was the first one I heard. Ms. Mayo?
Do we have to vote?
No,
Okay.
it's a discussion.
Okay. I just wanted to just kind of put this out there that at the time that we actually, to back up a little bit about the permitted parking expansion downtown, because I'm the chair of the parking steering committee, we commissioned a survey for all of these streets, the Walnut Street, Jackson Street, several other streets that are included. I'm not speaking to Canalcan at all. But we had an overwhelming response that the residents, including myself, who's a resident of Walnut Street for the last 10 years, who is directly affected by the Sovereign Bank old Sovereign Bank that's been fenced off. We had an overwhelming response that that people did want us to permit these particular streets. Over time, as the downtown grows, and people are going to the Colonial, going to Bistro, so on and so forth, they're parking in the areas where we live, and we want them to park in the metered parking lots. That's what they're there for. So, and the second point is that the Church Street part between Main Street and Bridge Street did get overlapped. We kind of did this survey and all that, and then the whole streetscapes thing came up. So, yeah, that looks like we're idiots on that one, but it did overlap. Those two projects did overlap. So, but anyway, I am total support of this. I want this to move forward. As a resident of this area, I do personally believe that we need to have this permitting put through as well. Thank you.
Mr. Bowers?
I think, again, terrific public participation tonight. And there's always great insight and things that we can learn from the public. And one comment that was made is the 2 hours turn cars, and they create more parking spaces and create a flow of customers through the businesses. I think that the concept of the 2-hour turn is a good one and supported by many comments that we heard tonight.
Any other comment? I just want to address Ms. Hudak's comment about Cleona. Part of this is that there's going to be a no parking on the northern side of Canalcan when you turn off of Cleona. So I think that might address some of the issues that you raised. The speed hump was put in. Unfortunately, if people aren't going to pay attention to it, they're not going to pay attention to it. That's unfortunate, especially if there's young children. But I think overall, the proposal tonight is a good one and addresses some issues with the parking in Phoenixville. With that, on the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 8-0. As Dr. Sanik clarified, item B has been withdrawn from the agenda and is on extension. Item C is a conditional use hearing for the project known as Friendship Village, located at 501 Franklin Avenue. At this time, because of conflicts that have been in place for during this whole process, I'm going to vacate the chair as president and ask that Ms. Dugan, as vice president, handle the conditional use hearing.
Sir, can I do it from here, or do I have to come all the way up there? Okay. Well, I guess we can open the, we don't have any presentation on this, do we? Yeah. Oh, we do? Okay, so let's see the presentation then.
Well, make a motion to open the public hearing.
Okay, I can make the motion since I'm running it.
You can make a motion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second the motion?
Sure.
Did anybody else have any comment on that? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Just for the record, before the public presentation, I would just like to go over some administrative matters to put it into the record so we have them preserved and mark them as various exhibits with your permission. Marked as Exhibit Borough 1 is the Planning Commission memo of November 21st of 2013. Marked as B2 is the conditional use application and also the original time extension that was received by the borough on November 26th. And finally, marked as Bravo 3 is the advertisement of this in the Pottstown Mercury, which was on January 14th, and those will be admitted as exhibits into the records.
Adam, I guess to help facilitate the discussions, Adam is plugging into your new system here to be able to put up the exhibits up on the board so everyone can
Yeah,
see
we'd ask just a couple of things for clarification. One is, this is a public hearing. Council has several options this evening. They can hear testimony, they can continue the public hearing if they want to hear additional testimony and hold it open to a later date. Normally, the course of action in a public hearing is the applicant makes a presentation. There will be opportunity for council comment and review, an opportunity for public comment on that, and we would ask that you would just please state your name and where you live, and then council can comment again, and then either continue the public hearing or close the public hearing and take action. And if you do have exhibits and you want to mark them for the record,
Yes, I have a
I'd hand them
bunch
to the
of
reporter and mark them in as in applicant's exhibits.
All right, I have a packet of all the exhibits we're going to use, pre-marked, which I will give you.
Okay.
All of the plans will be...
And that will be Alpha 1, which is a massive an exhibit with all the materials you want to council to consider.
A1 through A7.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay. Almost ready.
Well, we have to take action. If we don't, it's deemed approval, but Jean can better direct as to what we have to do. Because if they have a timeline, like the SEC has a timeline, it's the municipal planning code. And if we don't act in a certain amount of time, it's a deemed approval. That doesn't.
For some reason, my computer shut down while I was sleeping, so it's starting back up again. So I apologize for the delay.
While Adam is booting up his computer, my name is Mike Murray. I'm here today on behalf of the applicant, Phoenixville LLC, who is the equitable owner of the subject property. It's the subject of the conditional use hearing this evening. We had submitted this conditional use application back in October while the property was still zoned MR. Senior housing was a use permitted by conditional use under that zoning district regulation. It was reviewed by the borough's planning commission in November and moved forward here for a conditional use hearing at this time. With me this evening, I do have three witnesses. I have Adam Suppley of KMS Design, who is our landscape architect and land planner, whose firm prepared the conditional use plans and the supplemental impact statements. I have Bruce Weinsteiger, who will be testifying as a representative of the equitable owner of the property, as well as the architect, and Joe Fiacco from Fiacco Engineering as a traffic engineering consultant. You about ready?
Yeah, we can get started.
All right, with that, I'll call my first witness. Yes. Do you want to swear them all in at the same time? Okay. So, here's our three witnesses. Raise your right hand.
I do. Adam Suppley.
Bruce Weinsteiger.
Okay, my first witness this evening is Adam Suppley. His CV is contained in the exhibit packet as Exhibit A15. I can run through some voir dire questions, but I believe that the council is familiar with his qualifications. If they want to move things along, if they want to accept him as an expert in land planning.
Oh, I'm sorry. Has he been recognized as an expert before Phoenixville Borough Council before?
I'll ask him that question.
I don't believe that I have.
What bodies have you served, been recognized as an expert?
I've on the CV that's in the package. There's a list of the bodies that I've been represented before. There's numerous to list. I can list them off on my CV if you would
Yeah,
like.
we have
Record?
Bethel Township, Delaware County, Doylestown Borough, Bucks County, East Vincent Township, Chester County, Lower Providence Township, Montgomery County, Lower Macungie, Lehigh County, Limerick Township, Montgomery County, Montgomery Township, Montgomery County, New Hanover Township, Montgomery County.
Quick question, has he been recognized as an expert in the Court of Common Pleas in any jurisdiction?
No, I've not.
You have not. So only before conditional use hearings in governing bodies and before zoning hearing boards?
That's correct.
Okay. Looking at this, looking at Mr. Suplee's qualifications and the fact that he's been recognized by numerous municipalities in several different counties, I don't have any particular objection, Ms. Dugan, if you wanted to go ahead and recognize him as an expert. Okay.
Okay. State your name and your business address, please.
My name is Adam Suplee, and I'm with KMS Design Group at 206 Bridge Street in Phoenixville.
And you've been qualified as an expert in landscape architecture and land planning. What was your role with the application tonight?
We were charged with the design of the site plan.
And did you also prepare the conditional use application?
Yes, my office did that. Did so.
And was that at your direction?
Yes, it was.
And there are certain impact statements that were prepared in conjunction with this. Did your firm prepare the environmental impact analysis that had been prepared with this application?
Yes, we did.
And the community and fiscal impact analysis?
Yes, we did.
And is it your understanding that a traffic impact analysis was also prepared?
That's correct, yes.
Is the, one of the counselors before the meeting asked me about that traffic impact statement. Is that marked as one of your exhibits?
Yes, it is.
And which one is it? Do you happen to know?
In the packet, it is Exhibit A14.
Thank you.
Okay, so you were charged with preparing the conditional use plan and the conditional use application. I guess using Exhibit A4, which is a aerial map of the property.
And that one we have up. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty. For some reason, things are hanging up as soon as I plugged in, but I'll try to get things to get back on schedule here.
I guess using that exhibit, explain to the board the property and the surrounding neighborhood.
The property is located on the north side of Phoenixville at the intersection of Franklin and Fillmore. To the north of the site, to refer you to the image on the screen, the site is outlined with the light red line, and you can see the intersection of Franklin and Fillmore as I'm indicating with an arrow on the exhibit. To the north of the site is parkland. There are park facilities, playgrounds directly across the street from the site. To the west are homes, residences, singles and twins. To the east is Friendship Field, which is athletic fields and open space. This is where the Firebird Festival was held. And to the south are additional residences. Kind of diagonally to the southwest is Franklin Commons as well.
And what is Franklin Commons?
Franklin Commons is a multi-use educational facility, including educational and after-school activities for anyone from preschool to college age. So it's an all-encompassing kind of educational facility.
And what's the current site conditions? I guess if you want to use Exhibit A, I believe A7, which is your part of, or the map that's attached to the back of A7, which you have.
See if I can open that up for you. I apologize again.
New technology.
Yeah, it was, of course it was working half an hour ago, so please bear with me as I open A7?
Yep.
A7 does not want to open. Yeah, I apologize. For some reason, as soon as we plugged in,
Do we have that on the
computer,
board somewhere?
hung up. Which one is that?
That is the environmental map.
Yes, I believe we do.
Move it out here.
Okay.
A7.
How about this one?
A7 is part of the environmental impact analysis that is included in your packet.
Can everyone see this board?
Probably the people back here can. Can you, I guess, describe to the board the existing site conditions?
Yeah, the existing site, as many of you are aware, is the site of the former construction site of the Friendship Fire Company. The construction began and was halted before construction was complete. Basically, a lot of literally the groundwork was laid for the project, and a lot of the underground utilities are there. There is a foundation for a building, as well as a lot of utility stubs coming up out of the ground. The majority of the site is covered either by the pad with the stone fill in the middle, or by the stone, which was intended to be the parking around the firehouse. So as we look, this is the pad site on the plan. I'm indicating that with my hand as far as where there's concrete foundation exists. Inside of that is where we see utilities. There are existing stormwater utilities on the site, and the site does go to basically a temporary sediment basin, which is used currently to capture stormwater, not for the purposes of the long-term stormwater recharge and what would be currently required, but more for a sediment control issue. The pipe then leaves the site and heads south. As I said, the majority of the site, as I'm indicating, is all paved with stone at this point in time. So the majority of the site is impervious. I'm sorry.
Can you try to get Exhibit A5 up, please?
Sure.
Which is the photo exhibit?
That one we can bring up.
Okay. All right, why don't you, using Exhibit A5, which is a photo exhibit, and I believe there's 3 photos, you'll probably have to
There are.
move them along. Describe to the council what we're looking at here today.
Okay. The top photo, which is in your packet, the top photo is the existing conditions of the site. We actually went out and took the photograph on Friday to indicate the current existing conditions of the site. And the next photo down, if it will not be frozen. I think we're going to have to refer to the board. I apologize.
All right.
Very frustrating. I could, yeah. Only fails when you need it. You know.
Can you explain to council what the second photograph is?
Sure. Basically, if you were standing on the site where this photo is looking and turned around and looked across the street, you would see the existing homes as they stand. This photo was taken at some time. You can see things a little bit greener. And then as you go down, this is across the street from Franklin. And then as you basically would turn 90 degrees, if you're still standing on the site and look north, you would see the existing conditions as they were taken late this summer of the playground that's across the street. So this kind of just gives the surrounding look of the site.
What's that?
I did.
Okay, the next board that we'll put up is the conditional use
Yes, it was permitted by conditional use.
And are there specific regulations within the MR zoning district with regard to density, setbacks, and such with regard to senior housing uses?
There are, and I could review those briefly. The minimum lot area would be required of 2.5 acres. The site is measured by tax map at 2.95 acres. The minimum lot width is 150 feet. What is proposed is, or existing is 359 feet. The minimum front yard setback is 25 feet. We are proposing to meet that 25 feet. The minimum side yard setback is 20 feet. What's proposed is 95 feet. The minimum rear yard setback is 30 feet. What is also proposed is 95 feet. The minimum building height is 50 feet or 4 stories. This project proposes 3 stories. The maximum building coverage is 40%, or 51,430 square feet, and what's proposed is a little over 20%. The maximum impervious coverage is 65%, and what's proposed is 57, almost 58%. Minimum dwelling unit size is 600 square feet, and we are proposing a larger dwelling unit than that. There's a couple different dwelling unit sizes that Bruce could get into further. Maximum density is 25 dwelling units per acre, and we are proposing 72, although we would be permitted to build 74.
Okay. Now, also in conjunction with the submission of this conditional use application, you prepared a environmental impact analysis, is that correct?
That is correct.
That is in your packets as Exhibit A7. The map that we were trying to get up was the exhibit at the back of that plan. Can you please run through for council what went into that report?
I can. Bear with me 1 second while I just try to reopen this folder offline. If you could open these up while I review.
Okay, go ahead.
At the microphone. The environmental impact analysis, it covered basically what's required is an analysis of the site, including the soils, the geology, and the hydrology. The soils are basically listed as urban land. The majority of the soils are urban land. 3 to 8%, 0 to 8%, relatively not very steep slopes. They're listed to be very well drained. However, analysis that we've done on site has shown that there's been a lot of disturbance and compaction over time, and therefore the site is not very well drained. We're having trouble getting stormwater to perk as much as we would like it to. Topography, the majority of the site is relatively flat, less than 8%. Only about 10% or 10.9% of the site has slopes over 8%. Only 0.9 acres have 25% or greater slopes. So, and that's just along the southern border of the site. And that's basically due to man-made grading that was done for the Friendship Fire Company. We reviewed the biological resources of the site. There are not that many biological resources on the site because of the substantial impact that the previous construction site had on here. Therefore, based on my observations and other observations that were done on the site, we noticed some nesting birds in the stone, migratory birds, but very few other animals. There are opportunistic weeds and plants and some lawn being maintained on the site. However, very few biological resources. We looked at the historic and visual resources on the site. Again, the site is a former construction site, so there's not much going on there. There are no known hazardous waste sites located on the site. We looked at the potential impact of this project, and basically we're looking to reduce the impervious coverage of this site gravel, stone areas are considered to be impervious. We're actually looking to reduce that down from what we've measured from aerial photographs already. Additional landscaping will be added, trees and shrubs, as well as the architectural elements along the facade of the project we feel are going to be an enhancement to the current site.
I guess in adding with that and going to the conditional use plan, is there currently any stormwater management facilities constructed on the site?
There is. There are stormwater facilities on the site. Basically, the pipes that were needed to convey the stormwater for the previous construction project were installed. However, unless we're going to use the exact same footprint as the site, a lot of those pipes and inlets will have to change. We're going to try to retain as much of that as possible. The main element of the site, as it was being designed before and as will be on this site for stormwater, is an underground stormwater basin, and that was not constructed. No parts of that were constructed. That component of it was basically bypassed at the shutdown of the construction site into the sediment basin, which I referred to earlier. And now that we have the graphics up on the screen, I can point with the arrow with the little hand here. This is where the existing sediment basin is, and this kind of light gray area is the proposed stormwater management basin underground below the parking lot and the landscaping.
Now, that stormwater management facility, is that just for this site, or is that being designed to handle additional water?
The stormwater management facility will be designed and has been initially designed to handle all of the pervious paving that is shown on the site, including the parking that is off the site to the right side of the plan. That water would drain back into the basin in the middle of the plan and would be processed and treated the same way.
Right. And that parking, is that for the existing parkland?
Yeah, that parking lot, the spaces along the right-hand side would be for the primary benefit of users of the park. Basically, as we've designed the core area of the parking lot that's kind of in the center of the site would serve the building, and the parking lot off to the side, although it could be shared back and forth, would primarily serve the park.
In describing the zoning requirements for the lot, how many parking spaces are required for this use on the property?
We are required one parking space per user or per unit, which would be 72 parking spaces.
And how many parking spaces are we proposing?
We're proposing 109 total parking spaces.
And is it anticipated that the excess parking would be available for use for the adjoining parkland?
Yes, it would be.
And is that being provided at no additional cost to the borough?
That's correct.
An exhibit, you also prepared a community and fiscal impact analysis, which is in your packet as Exhibit A8. Can you explain to council what that report details?
Sure. Following the guidelines from the borough for the community and fiscal impact, we prepared an analysis that described the project, described what was going to be, what is proposed for the project, and what we describe is that it's going to be a residential use designed for a primary occupant of age 62 and over. We're proposing, as we said, 72 dwelling units, and of which 60 one-bedroom units and 12 two-bedroom dwelling units. Based on the analysis done by Rutgers titled Residential Demographic Multipliers, Estimates of the Occupants of New Housing, we estimate that there will be 99 people that will be living in these 72 total units.
Excuse me, just a quick question, because
Yes.
I know it was a question of some of the councilors and the mayor. When you did this analysis, and perhaps I didn't read through all the exhibits right now, but when you talked about, obviously, the financial impact and the impact on the community. Was there any extrapolation of what additional police or fire services were going to be needed for this development? And is there, any way that the developer here, intended through a voluntary nature to address those?
We did not conduct an analysis and interview process with the police and fire. We certainly would be open to suggestions and comments, but we did not do that as part of the study. Based on the requirements that we saw in the Borough Code, we didn't see that it was necessary to do so, but we certainly could do so and provide additional information.
Yeah, it may not specifically be contained in the ordinances, and it may not specifically be outlined as an impact fee in the municipality's planning code. That being said, I'm sure you recognize the impact that this would have on, emergency services within the borough. And I know the councilors and staff would always appreciate that kind of dialogue and that kind of conversation with the manager and making sure that's accounted for.
And that's fine.
Certainly.